Hello and welcome to Blue Army TV. I'm sitting at Carlisle. I've actually won a game at home, 2-1 against Accrington Stanley. In what is a game that, look, it's not about the performance, it's about the result. We needed the result to, keep ourselves in the running to stay up, which seems like a mad thing to say when you think of the expectations at the start of the season. But look, I remember a run of games last year. And it feels very similar to this. I believe it was something along the lines of Cheltenham, Port Vale, and another fairly easy match. And I remember thinking going into them games, we need to win them 2, or we need to win them 3. And I had a very, very similar feeling about Morecambe and Accrington Stanley being back-to-back. We've lost one and won one now, which is better than we fared last season in League One, coming into that kind of run of playing the bottom teams. But look, we're still in the relegation zone. We're not bottom anymore after Morecambe jumped above us last week with their win over us, and we're now only a point from safety. Yes, teams above us have a game in hand, but we're not as cut adrift as we could have been. If results had gone against us today, we could have been 7 points cut adrift, and we're not. We're only 1 point behind. Games in hand, of course, but at this end of the table, points matter a lot more than games in hand. If teams at this end of the table are averaging half a point a game or a point a game, stuff like that. So I'd much rather have the points than the games in hand, which we also don't have. But what I'm trying to say is games in hand don't always necessarily mean something. Look, I think the first goal today was probably the goal I've been happiest with all of this season, just because of the way we've scored it. It's the first time since the 2 goals at Fleetwood where we've scored a goal that's just a simple pass into the box, shoot. It's the kind of goal that we need to be scoring a lot more of, because I enjoy goals from set pieces. I enjoy goals from mistakes, like when you force the opposition into a mistake like we did today for the second one. But the kind of goals that are going to get you up the table, and the kind of goals that you need to score consistently, and the kind of goals that you should be able to rely on as a team, are the kind of goals that we scored in the first 10 minutes, which is the Kadeem Harris goal. It was a lovely run from John Mellish down the wing, which, as a centre-back, I'm not sure why he was there, but I'm very glad he was. Puts a nice ball in, Kadeem Harris hits it first time, lovely finish. That kind of simple pass, finish, goal needs to be happening a lot more of, and it's that kind of goal that we've missed out on a lot this season, and it's because of the lack of them kind of goals that I think we're in the position we're in. But yeah, I was happy with that. I was happy with that goal. But look, the game today, I'm happy with the win. I'm happy with the 3 points, but I don't think I can honestly sit here and say that we were excellent. I think it was a game played between 2 very difficult teams. If we'd have lost that game or even drew that game, I'd have been absolutely convinced we were going down, because you're not going to get an easier game than that. I know I said that against Morecambe because they were poor, but I genuinely think Accrington Stanley were the worst team I've seen play at Brunton Park for the last few years, and even then we needed a mistake from their keeper to win. I don't think we played well today. I think the result will ultimately paper over the cracks of the overall performance, because I don't think it was good. I think we saw some nice play from Sadie, Jordan Jones, who, very happy with him having the captaincy today, and obviously Kadeem Harris, who I think was our man of the match, certainly would have been if he hadn't been taken off in the 65th minute, something along them lines. But yeah, I think them 3 players were excellent. Other than that, not too much going on. I think Aaron Hayden really confuses me. I don't know what to think about him, because I remember before we sold him to Wrexham, in his first stint when we signed him after he was released by Wolves, I think it was, or Wolves or Chelsea, one of the two, when we signed him as a free agent, as somebody on trial, when Stephen Presley got his hands on him, and he started playing at centre-back, he looked so solid, so reliable, just strong, a strong, aerially threatening centre-back who wasn't just defending well, who wasn't just a quick defender, a quick, strong, very able defender. He was also a massive attacking threat from set pieces. The Aaron Hayden we've signed coming back from Wrexham is none of those things. I still think he wins headers. That's about all he can do. He's so injury prone. He's so poor when it comes to the whole passing out from the back kind of thing, which, to be fair, might not be his game, but that kind of attacking football is what he was playing at Wrexham. Or wasn't playing at Wrexham because he was in the treatment room for the vast majority of that. He's injury prone now, which is disappointing. He's missed a few games through injury this season. He made a big mistake that led to the Accrington Stanley goal today. He's not reliable. And although he is aerially threatening, it always seems to be head it just straight back down the middle, straight back into danger. That's all he seems to do, and he's really getting on my nerves, and he has done all season, because the player we've signed back from Wrexham is far from the player we sold. And it really is concerning me with him, because he was a signing that I was reluctantly excited about, because I was still a little bit bitter from him going. But I knew he was a good player because I'd seen him play so many times before. I'd seen him consistently put in fantastic performances in that Chris Beach season during the lockdown years. I've seen him be a formidable player that's far above this league. But what we're seeing now and what we've seen since he come back, I don't know whether it's because of the injury, but it just isn't the same player. And I'm not entirely sure why. Maybe I'm being a little bit too harsh now, but it just... He's a liability, I think. And this is a game that, if we win this game 2-0, although the performance still wouldn't have been fantastic, it's a goal that we've set up quite nicely for the first one. And then it's a goal that we've managed to get from a mistake. And it looks like a dominant display. Because of that goal now, that game now feels to me a lucky win. Because... we've scored one each and we've managed to get a bit of luck for our goal, with the keeper making a massive mistake for them. We've won this game against probably the worst team I've ever seen at Brunton Park because of a lucky mistake from their goalkeeper. It's a win, and it's 3 points on the board, and it's exactly what we needed. And hopefully the players can build a bit of confidence, because like I said, there was positives today. I've named the players. Kadeem Harris, I think, fantastic. I hope we can keep him till at least the end of the season, if not longer, because he really impresses me every single time he plays, and he probably should have been starting the last two games. Then you've got Jordan Jones, first time captain in the club. I think he did a fantastic job of that. He's maybe a little bit lightweight at times, but at the end, most of the time when he goes down and starts rolling around, although it's not what I like to see in a player, most times today he was winning the free kick, so of course he's going to keep doing it. So I was happy with his performance as well. And then obviously the usual brilliance of Dominic Saddy. He's going to go back on loan, from his loan back to Bournemouth at the end of the season. But if you can keep Jones and Kadeem Harris, who I thought were very much playing off each other, who were playing really well together as a duo, then I think that's something you can build the team around, not just this season, but long term, if we can manage to stay up this season. Because they're both experienced, they're both incredibly gifted, and they're both, in my opinion, quite hard-working players. And them two were the big positives coming out today, I think, as well as Dominic Saddy, who, Bournemouth got a hell of a player on their hands with him. Sam Lavelle, not in the squad. There was rumours on Twitter that he'd fell out with the manager, which wouldn't surprise me, because Callum Guy's meant to be ill, and I'm believing that line less and less every single time. But it sounds horrible saying that I hope he is ill, but I hope he's ill, because that means he'll come back. Because if he has fallen out with the manager, and if he has fallen out with Sam Lavelle, if the manager's fallen out with Sam Lavelle, then that's arguably two of our best players there, in Callum Guy, who's been a fantastic player for this club for a long time now, and Sam Lavelle, who's probably been our best player this season. We can't allow for those two players to be out for disciplinary issues. We can't, obviously, if it has been that, then if it's been them having a go at the manager, then I don't blame the manager for leaving them out. But I just hope so much that them two players who can help us so much in this survival fight aren't out for the rest of the season because of some kind of disagreement with the manager. I really hope that they can come back and be a big part in this season, because Callum Guy was a big reason that we went down last year, him being injured. Sam Lavelle was a big reason we went down in a different way. But look, I think John Mellish had a good game as well. I'll give him a little bit of credit. Obviously a very big part in the goal, managed to cut his head, made for an excellent picture that the club put out on Twitter of, the blood stream down his face. He looked a real warrior. But yeah, Breeze again having a good game, and I feel like I'm saying that everyone's had a good game, but I I think still collectively. Right, what I'll say, what my biggest observation coming out of today, we look like a team full of quality that's poorly coached, and Accrington Stanley look the opposite. They look like a very well-drilled team that's devoid of any kind of quality. And I think that's the difference, and I think it could have gone either way, because it was a real battle of quality versus coaching, and quality just won out today, because I think individually there was a lot of players that had decent games. Talking about the other players at the back, Aaron Hayden I've already talked about, very poor game from him. Ben Barkley, I don't like him in the middle of that back three. Mellish was a big reason that we defended as well as we did today, regardless of that mistake from Aaron Hayden. I just don't understand what's happened to Aaron Hayden. Is it the injury that he sustained at Wrexham? I don't know what's happened to him, but he looks a shadow of his former self, and I hope he can get back to it, because ultimately Aaron Hayden's probably one of my favourite players to ever play for Carlisle. But not this version. The version that we had under Chris Beach, who was partnered with Rhys Bennett, and had Nick Anderton on one other side of him, and George Tanner. Just think of these players we used to have, man, and it's a far cry from what we've got now anyways. But yeah, let me know what you think, because another thing I want to touch on quickly before I finish the video. Does this mean Mike Williamson should stay? I don't think so. I think there was a banner in the Warwick today that the stewards took down. They'll probably say something like it's obscuring people's views, but it did come across as you're trying to censor the fans. Some of the owners were there today as well. I didn't notice the big dog Tom, but I did notice his son Tom too, and Jenna and Nick as well at the game today. So the owners are still here. The owners are still seeing the fans' opinion. I hated the fact that he just walked down the tunnel after the match, and I've seen people say, well, what do you expect him to do with the abuse he's been getting from fans? It's not been abuse, it's been very just criticism that he's been getting. People see him as not good enough, and they see him as uninspiring and really quite rude, which is all absolutely fine criticism, because what we've seen so far, that's true. Even today we got the points, but it wasn't a great performance. There was still a lot to be desired, and I still think a big problem is the coaching side. But like I said, it was more our individual quality that won us that game today, and less of the coaching. We tried to change a few things today, and I think a few things did work. We played a lot more direct, we played a lot less passing out from the back, which worked in some small instances against a very poor team. I looked at Accrington today, and their most important player for me was their number 7, and I thought, he might be a good signing for the transfer window. I look him up, he's 37 years old. A 37-year-old was their most valuable player, in my opinion. He was the most important player for them. We played a very poor team, and I don't want anybody to think say Mike Williamson shut up the haters today, or shut up the fans, because it's a game that we needed to win. We did win, and I'm happy about that, but it very much papers over the cracks, and I still think that Mike Williamson isn't the right man, and his reaction at full time of just storming down the tunnel as almost to say, I told you, look at all that unjust criticism that I was getting last week. I've really showed you. You haven't. He just hasn't, because it was still a poor performance, and it really frustrates me that he feels like he's bigger than this. My biggest hope now, because I think the owners are going to have to stick with him, especially with giving him a transfer window now, that we get to the end of the season, we somehow manage to stay up, and then we can rebuild with a new manager in the summer. I think that needs to be the plan now, because it's not even these tactics, although that is a big negative. It's the way he conducts himself. That today was just another example of it, that arrogance of just storming down the tunnel at full time. After such a poor performance against Morecambe, you still got over 7,000 people here today, at Brunton Park today. I really expected it to be less than half of that. With the performance at Morecambe, there was talks of a boycott. You've got 7,500 Carlisle fans, or roughly that, coming to watch you, paying to come and watch you, and in essence paying for your wages by doing so. You're not in a position where you can just arrogantly storm down the tunnel and not applaud them, because we showed fight today, and the crowd was supportive of the team. There wasn't any booing, really. There was a little bit of frustration when we started to sit back and defend after we conceded the goal. But ultimately, Brunton Park was absolutely fantastic today. From all areas of the ground, I thought the fans showed some really good support. And for the first time in, it was only the third time this year that we've won at home. And it's going to be that forever because, it's 2024 is always going to be the year that we won 3 games at home and lost the rest. And not lost the rest, but you know what I mean. They've got every right to be critical. And despite consistent failure at home, when we went ahead, even though we were playing poorly, the amount of support from the fans was unreal, I thought, today. And you've got no right to storm down the tunnel afterwards. It just doesn't make sense to me. It comes across so arrogant. And yeah, I feel like I'm being very negative in a video in which we've won. But I just don't like him. I still don't think he's the right man for the job. But look, positives to take. Hopefully we can build on this win. We've got Crew up next, I believe. I'm not too clued up on the fixtures. But hopefully we can carry on this momentum. And we seem to be better away from home, so let's see. Let's just see. Crew will be a lot bigger test than Accrington Stanley were today. And I do believe that if we play like we did today, we'll get beat. One last thing before I wrap up. Jack Ellis came in for Aaron Hayden. That was the only substitution I agreed with Mike Williamson. Taking Aaron Hayden off because he'd had a very poor game. Jack Ellis looked good, and I thought it was a good response from the very poor game. I thought he had a Markham. So yeah. Anyways, let me know what you think in the comments. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel, and in a bit.